This is the last screen that we were looking at in class when we were talking about the demand and supply shifters. Next, we'll look at what happens to equilibrium price and quantity when there's a shift in either demand or supply. So if you look at this particular slide, what you see is that there has been a shift in demand. So we start at this demand right here, and we have an equilibrium price of 3 and an equilibrium quantity of 5. When we see that there's an increase in demand due to one of our shifters, perhaps this is the market for coffee, and there's been an increase in the price in tea, so as a substitute good, people are now demanding more coffee. What happens if you draw this and look at your graph is you can see that at the new equilibrium, that the equilibrium price has gone up and the equilibrium quantity has also gone up. So a rightward shift in demand or an increase in demand results in higher price for a good and a higher quantity. What about if there's a decrease in demand? On this graph, we can see this is our original demand curve, and the second one is labeled demand prime. And at the original demand curve, we have a price of $3 and a quantity of 5. And now there's been a decrease in demand for some reason. Perhaps a decrease in the population means fewer consumers are wanting to buy coffee. So demand shifts to the left, and we see decreases in both quantity and price. Those are pretty simple. If demand increases, quantity and price both increase. Demand decreases, they both decrease. But it gets a little bit more complicated with supply. Let's say we have this initial supply curve and this initial demand curve. And again, price is $3, quantity is 5. Let's imagine we're talking about coffee at Starbucks. And something has happened to shift supply to the right. And there's any number of things that could happen. For example, there could be more coffee producers. There could be more coffee plantations. There could be a decrease in the cost of one of the items used to produce coffee, like water, a new technology involved in processing coffee. Any of those things could cause this rightward shift, and you'll notice that this textbook graph shows the arrow a little bit down. I would encourage you to draw your arrows straight across. Okay, but the rightward shift in supply or increase in supply causes the quantity sold, the equilibrium quantity, to increase from 5 to 6. But the price, you'll notice, actually drops from 3 down to 2. So with an increase in supply, we don't see price and quantity move in the same direction. Instead, we see quantity increase, but price decrease. So you can probably hypothesize what's going to happen with a decrease in supply. Again, we're going to see price and quantity move in different directions. With a decrease in supply, starting right here again, $3, quantity of 5, supply decreases, for example, water shortages or bad weather or a decrease in the number of coffee producers. Supply shifts to the left. Okay, I would draw a straight arrow across here. Shifts to the left, and we see an increase in price and a decrease in output. So what happens when we put these things together? It is possible that some factors are actually going to cause double shifts, like, for example, expectations. Or when we get to taxes, we might see a double shift. We'll also see double shifts when it comes to trade and changes in the value of currency. So there's a number of things that could actually cause both curves to shift. And that's a little bit more complicated, again, because when they both shift, we're always going to have one outcome that is indeterminate. So if you look at this, we're starting here, the equilibrium of $3 and a quantity of 5, and we've had an increase in demand, and we've had a decrease in supply, and we end up at this new equilibrium. And it's clear that the price of this good has gone up. Okay, the price of coffee has gone up. It looks like on this graph, it looks like the quantity has stayed exactly the same. But if you look at this graph closely, you'll notice that that's making a pretty big assumption, right? If demand had shifted a little bit further, if demand was over here and it shifted a little bit further than supply, price would still go up, right? But the quantity would also change. It would increase. If demand had shifted a little bit less, right, we would still have that increase in price. We'd have a decrease in quantity, and we could do that with supply as well. So it's the magnitude of the shift that determines what happens to quantity. So we literally cannot tell from this graph. So we're going to call that indeterminate. What about this scenario? Again, if you look at this, you'll notice that it's very, very clear that the price dropped. But what happens to the quantity depends on the magnitude of the two shifts. Here we have a situation where supply increases and demand increases, and this time it's the price change that's indeterminate and dependent on the magnitude of the shifts. It's clear there's no way we could shift those two lines and not end up with the quantity increasing, but what happens to price depends on whether supply shifts more or demand shifts more. And finally, they both decreased here, and again, the price is indeterminate. And I would not recommend trying to memorize these different scenarios. I would recommend trying to practice them, draw the graphs, see what happens, because you want to be able to rely on your ability to graph and come up with the appropriate solution, not just memorizing the various combinations. Okay, our last slide here asks what happens to PEQ and QEQ as these various things happen. So I'm going to suggest that you actually take a moment to answer all of them. So pause the video, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to explain what happens in each one. Okay, the solutions are this. If the price of cheese goes up in the market for pizza, I'm going to say that cheese is actually a resource or an input cost, so that would cause supply to shift to the left. I'm just going to kind of outline where the line would be right here. Supply would shift to the left, and that would cause an increase in price and a decrease in quantity. Number two, people decide they like sushi better than pizza. That would be in the market for pizza a decrease in demand because people don't want pizza anymore. So we would have the new demand curve over here, and as you can see, that would be a decrease in price and a decrease in quantity. Number three, the government taxes pizza. Again, we haven't really talked about taxes. We are going to come back and talk about taxes in week 4. But for the moment, you can assume that taxes are actually going to be a cost. So the supplier is going to have to pay the government, which means that the supply of pizza is going to shift to the left, and price will go up and quantity will go down. Price of soft drinks goes down. You have to ask yourself, what's the relationship between soft drinks and pizza? I'm going to assume that they are complementary goods, that you would consume soft drinks and pizza together. So if soft drinks become cheaper, that would actually increase our demand for pizza. So we would see an increase in price and quantity. People's incomes go down. We have to ask ourselves, well, is pizza a normal good or an inferior good? And generally speaking, just general pizza, I'm going to say that pizza is a normal good. So if people's incomes go down, demand will go down, okay, and we will have a decrease in both price and quantity. Number 6, a great tomato harvest, cheaper tomato sauce. That's going to be one of the ingredients, one of the resources for pizza, so supply will shift to the right. We'll have a new supply curve over here, lower price, higher quantity. The price of oil goes down. Guess what? Same thing. Oil actually, oil is a resource in pretty much everything. Actually, as I was reading this, and you may have had the same experience, I was thinking olive oil, which gets used to make pizza, but any kind of oil. Even if we're talking about the oil that goes into making gasoline that is part of our delivery truck system, either way, resource, supply shifts to the right, price goes down, quantity goes up. Pizza ovens become cheaper, another resource cost, another rightward supply shift, another decrease in price and increase in quantity. Number 9, nationwide no pizza diet. That would be unfortunate. That would cause a decrease in demand, decrease in price, decrease in quantity. And number 10, Domino's announces a big pizza, can't read it here, sale. Okay, what's going to happen if there's a big pizza sale? That would simply be a lower price. It would actually be essentially a movement along the demand curve and would probably cause a shortage of pizza. That is the end of our notes for this week. Please let me know if you have any questions.